What time is it? It's time for another Every Other Wednesday.
Hello, Sarah.
Richard's not here.
Richard is not here. I am playing the role of Richard.
Well, I want to say that Richard tried to be here, but he is sitting on an airplane in Jacksonville in the middle of a horrendous rainstorm. So I think we understand.
Yes.
We have a question in the chat box. Just put, what do you do for fun at work? What do you do for fun at work? And why, Michael? What day is it?
Why? Because today is official. Don't go into work unless it's fun day.
Yeah.
Hey, that's a good answer. Are we allowed to have? Of course you're allowed to have. What, have you not read my book, The Humor Advantage, Why Some Businesses Are Laughing All the Way to the Bank? You're not only allowed to have fun at work, it should be required.
The prerequisite, right? Yes. Actually, yeah, no fun, you burn out.
We do this for fun. We certainly don't do it for the money.
I do it for the money. I don't know if you guys know this, but
we're not getting paid for this.
Richard, Michael, and Jeff pay me lots of money to hang out with them. So
we've been trying to pay you money to not show up.
Yeah.
Oh, that's what the money is for. Sorry.
Oh, ice cream social tomorrow. Excellent,
yeah.
Fritz. That is definitely fun. Retired. You can have fun, Carol.
What flavor?
Retirement.
Wait, he switched to Fritz.
No one, no other. What? Anything you do for fun? Tomorrow's Thursday. One of my favorite, simple, goofy ideas that one of my clients does is third person Thursdays, where you just refer to yourself by your own name all day.
Carol, I'm sorry. That idea. Carol, I wasn't here. I wasn't here 2 weeks ago, so I didn't know that he switched. So. By the way, I do have apologies if you don't mind me starting this way, and that is that I'm just coming off of a 24-hour trip travel, so I'm a little jet lagged. I don't know what day it is, except this is the only way I knew it was Wednesday. So thank you, guys. Let's get started.
Let's get started, shall we? Hey, welcome everybody. Thanks for joining us. Thank you for the comments in the chat box. And as always, if you haven't switched your chat settings, switch it to everyone so we can see your wit and your wisdom and your banter and your excellent questions and ideas. Today it is Wednesday, April 3rd, 2024. My name is Michael Kerr, coming to you as I usually am from Canmore, Alberta in the Canadian Rockies. I write and speak about inspiring workplace cultures and humor in the workplace. And Sanjay, over to you.
My name is Sanjay Nav. I'm based just outside of Toronto in Oakville, Ontario. I'm a speaker and author focusing on leadership and performance, known by a concept and a framework called the 10-80-10 principle, which is about focusing on your strengths. And actually, I will be in near Michael this weekend in Calgary because my eldest son is competing in the Canadian National Tumbling Championships. So, woo woo,
which is very cool. We wish him well.
Yes, Jeff.
And I just answered Rob and answered to host and panelists. So I'm just getting off the trip, a 3-week trip of a lifetime to Vietnam and Cambodia. But I don't remember who I am or what I do. So skip me. I'm Jeff Tobe.
If we thought it was easy to poke fun at Jeff before and he wouldn't fight back, now it's even easier. So, keep those comments coming in the chat box,
Absolutely.
Please.
I am Jeff Tobe. I know I live in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And I am Coloring Outside the Lines, all about customer experience and engagement.
Especially after 1 hour sleep. I'm sure you're coloring out of the lines.
That's all I have last night. I was sharing with these guys.
Yes.
So,
hey, in addition to Don't Go Into Work Unless It's Fun Day, it is also Fan Dance Day, Bookmobile Day, Walk Day, Pony Express Day, Tweed Day. I'm wearing tweed underwear. I don't know about you, gents. Find a Rainbow Day, Weed Out Hate Day, World Party Day, Film Score Day, and Don't Go Into Work Unless It's Fun Day. There you go.
I have a question. If ever we don't have a topic for EOW, you could just read a really, really long list for 45 minutes and we'd be covered.
There you go. We could read all the theme days throughout the entire year.
Anybody know what a thumball is?
Yeah, I was about to ask the exact same thing. What is a thumball?
I don't know if it's like this big thing she throws at everybody or just a little thing So Jenny, if you can enlighten us, that'd be great. Let's get started. What are we talking about today, Michael?
Well, Jeff, thank you for that question. We are talking about meetings. And specifically, we are talking about the idea of what is this?
We don't like
People hate meetings. Let's call them something
People
else.
hate. Yes, they're too often, sadly, soul-sucking, fun-sucking experiences. But as we've talked about here before, they're incredibly important when it comes to culture. They help build a better culture. They're one of the key touch points to build a better culture, I think, and they should reflect our culture. But specifically, what we want to get into today is this idea of single purpose theme meetings. These are meetings you wouldn't necessarily do every week or maybe even every month. You might do them just a quarter, sporadically as you need them, but we've got a whack of different ideas, and we'd love to hear your ideas on specific theme meetings where you're just focusing on one specific topic, one specific outcome or type of meeting. And the idea being that those can help you focus a lot better on certain aspects of your culture or your business that you need to focus on. And also so that people understand the intent of the meeting. Some of the stress, when you look at the pet peeves people have about meetings, comes from a lack of understanding about what the purpose of a meeting was, where there's cross purposes happening in a meeting, and maybe you're trying to accomplish too much or do too much. As we were talking earlier, maybe you have the expectation that you were going to brainstorm ideas for this meeting, but there's no time for that, and that wasn't the purpose of the meeting. Or conversely, that decisions were going to be made in this meeting, but in fact, it's more of an idea generation brainstorming meeting, and no decisions are going to be made at this meeting.
And one of the nice things about that is when you have that laser focus, it generally shortens the length of the meeting, and you can avoid scope creep as well, right? This is what you said. So we also know too, like a shark to its tank, the meeting typically tends to fill up the time allotted. I remember many moons ago, I was part of a startup software group, and we sat around and we had a meeting. And it lasted like 3 hours. And keep in mind, there was 4 partners, and we only had 7 people on the team. But the 4 partners got together, and it was a 3-hour meeting, and we discussed what our email should be. Should it be Sanjay at logo name, domain name? Should it be Sanjay Nath at logo name? Should it be SNAP? And we went on and on. And again, part of the problem is when you don't have the focus, you go everywhere. And again, the more clear we can be, there's an old expression that says, no agenda, no attenda, right? So we don't expect people to come unless we're really clear as to what the objective of this is. And sometimes by being really clear on the objective, we set up the expectations and we weed out the people that shouldn't be there because they're not going to add to it. And it actually streamlines the whole process.
Yeah, I think before we get into specific ideas, let's step back for a minute and we need to ask ourselves, what do our meetings say about our culture? And right there, are they in alignment with the way we want our culture to be perceived? A meeting is really an opportunity for people to get together. That's a simplified version. What values do we want them to reflect? I think that if we took more time to think about each specific meeting and which value of our culture we want it to reflect, it would change the way we hold meetings.
Yeah, for sure. And when you think about how much goes on in meetings, right? When you think about how people's communication styles come across, how, as you said, Jeff, how it reflects our values in our culture, how when you're talking about ideas, so how are we listening to each other's ideas? Are we shooting them down? Are we being seagulls and prematurely crapping all over each other's ideas?
How one more time, please? Thank you. And I think that it's actually, I totally lost my train of thought there. I'm getting old like you guys.
The seagull threw you off.
By the way, happy birthday, Sanjay.
Happy birthday, Jeff.
It was Sanjay's birthday last week.
Yes, it was.
And Jeff's the week before.
Thank you for all those people that sent me gifts. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Mine's on the way.
Awesome.
You want us to pick up now or just leave you hanging?
Just leave me. Move on.
So the question is why, Mike? And by the way, why is this so important to you? I'm giving you a
you're giving me, why is it so important to me? Well, because I talk about this in my upcoming book, Small Moments, Big Outcomes.
Wait, what's it called?
It's called Small Moments, big outcomes.
Okay.
How leaders create cultures that fuel extraordinary results.
Is that your radio voice?
That's my radio voice. That's my book announcement voice.
Is that your radio face? Oh, sorry.
This is my radio face. Yes.
Yeah. No, of course. So you are somewhat of an expert in this, and we are just following your lead today. So should we talk about some specific ones? How do you want to?
Yes.
I have a couple ideas too.
Yeah. Let's try. But yeah, before we get into the specific ones, though, let's just in terms of the framing too, because you both touched on this, the importance of, as Sanjay said, having a clear agenda, but also having a clear purpose in your meetings and making sure everyone understands that and setting the intent at the start of the meeting. I'm a big fan of doing this, of laying out the intent in terms of not just the purpose of the meeting, but intent in terms of how we want participants to behave, right? Intent in terms of kind of priming the pump to encourage people to listen to one another, to be open-minded, to new ideas and receptive to new ideas, whatever it may be, right? So just setting the intent, I think, in any meeting is really important. But we've got a list of different.
Wait, let me ask you a question, because you know, when I talk about customer experience, one of the things that I promote in a customer experience journey are stand-up 10-minute check-in meetings every day. And I think it's different than what we're talking about, right? That has a clear intent, but it certainly isn't a prolonged meeting, so to speak. So how do you define meeting, I guess, is the other question.
Right.
And that was actually the point I was trying to make that I've now remembered, was this idea of what is the medium? Because when we think of a meeting, we think of people sitting in a room, a boardroom table or whatever, and we're discussing the agenda. But given technology, or even not using technology, do you stand at the meeting? Are you having a huddle? Because a huddle is a form of a meeting, but so is a 6-hour detailed agenda. Or is it a virtual meeting? Are we doing it like this is a meeting, right? Or maybe it's not even a Zoom, but it's an email trail, right? Or it's a WhatsApp group, because you can still meet and have these kind of ongoing meetings. So I think you want to make sure that the medium you're choosing reflects what you're trying to do, because we all know we're over meeting to death. And how many times have you left a meeting rolling your eyes going, they could have saved me 45 minutes and sent me a 3-line email.
That could have been an email. That's one of the reasons why food should be a requirement at every meeting. And I love, before we lose this, I love what Bob said, you know, starting a meeting by defining what will make the meeting a success, right? That's a great practice. At the end of this meeting, we will have blank, blank, blank. Right?
But I think it was Jenny who said, you know, she's overly zealous. And I see that often, right? You want to get to a certain goal and you just don't get there in the time allotted. So I think you have to be conscious of not packing too much into a meeting.
For sure. And then what happened, you end up rushing really serious topics that should take more time, right? You're trying to cram through this agenda, and it frustrates everyone and it stresses everyone out.
I sat in on a client's meeting yesterday, and there's 3 subcommittees, and each subcommittee was supposed to report. Well, by the end of the second subcommittee, we had 5 minutes left for the third one, and they rushed through it, like you said, Mike, and it just didn't do it justice at all. And they said, well, we'll have to put it off till next week. Well, to me as an attendee, I came to hear the results of these 3, you know, reporting out, not next week. So
I think it's the company Flickr that has this crazy policy where everybody has to drink a 16-ounce glass of water before they come into a meeting, and the first person who has to leave to go pee, that's when the meeting is over.
That's awesome.
And my friends all know it would be me, so they don't call me Tiny Bladder Tobe for nothing. So.
But Jeff, back to your point about daily huddles, and I talk about that in my book, and I'm a huge fan of daily huddles. Yeah. And as I say, you know, they're not really meetings because you're not sitting down. As soon as you have chairs, right, it becomes a meeting.
That's what I was looking for. Does that define the meeting, right?
Maybe it does. But you know, just short and sweet, same time, same agenda every day, 5 to 10 minutes. I know some organizations have this down to a fine art, like Nurses Next Door. Theirs are 7 minutes long, right? Or 1-800-GOT-JUNK. They train huddle masters to do these every day. So I'm a huge fan of daily team huddles. And in fact, if you do daily team huddles properly, effectively, I would suggest it could cut down on some of the other meetings, the need for some of your other meetings.
Absolutely.
And emails. Well, let's dive in. Sanjay, start us off with a single purpose.
Okay, well, I mean, a single purpose one would be sort of like an evaluation kind of check-in. So one of the things I did, and I mentioned before, I used to work at a summer camp. And when I was in charge of training the leaders, the CIT program and stuff, that was one of the things I got the counselor to do with the CIT, was to do a check-in, like a bit of an evaluation. But I think one of the important things about that is to have a structure that allows people to give positive and negative feedback. So if you require it, otherwise people are reluctant to say something negative or something constructive, because they're like, I don't want to be a bad guy. I don't want to look like a jerk. I don't want to be a Simon Cowell. So if you say, okay, you know, they always talk about the old shit sandwich, say something nice, say something constructive, say something nice again. And that was one of the things I wouldn't let them get off the hook by saying, oh, the CIT is wonderful and they have a nice smile. I'm like, okay, you can give me something good, but you got to give me something constructive that they can work on as well.
And sorry, Sanjay, this was a meeting, like this was with a group of people, not a one-on-one conversation.
No, it was usually with like 3 or 4. It was a small meeting, but it would be, you know, multiple check-ins. So yeah, it was short and sweet, very directed. It's like, hey, we're going to meet with your 2 CITs, the counselor and me. Boom, sit down. What is he or she doing that's working? What's not working? Okay, next. What is he or she doing? What's working? What's not working? 5 minutes, we're out of there.
Very cool. Very cool.
5 minutes. Wow.
Yeah.
I want to mention one that I've mentioned many times, so I won't go into a lot of detail. I know that, Mike, you're a big proponent of field trips as well. I think that can be a form of a meeting that, you know, in lieu of the meeting this week, we're going to go see this, and the following meeting, we're going to come back and discuss, you know, in our case, you know, my case, especially is customer experience as is yours. You know, what did you see? What can we bring back a massage for our group? So a meeting doesn't have to be the typical sit around a table. You know, I will say that years ago when I talked about just creativity in business, coloring outside the lines, I challenged people to shatter the stereotype of their meetings. And one of the things that I said was, I had an example way back when, this is going back 20 years ago, 2 examples very quickly, but one was the CEO had come to one of my talks, and the next meeting they had, he asked them all to push their chairs back from the conference table, and they sat on the floor and literally had the meeting under the table and had a huge laugh. And yet he said it was one of the most productive meetings they had in months, just because it was so much fun. And I know we're going there. Another one I'll just tell you very quickly is, I had a client who was doing they are a distributor and they have to present to potential clients their product line, and they were invited to a big customer, the third one to present, and they wanted to change the atmosphere. So they rented a van, and they literally said they were the last one to present. They said, we're going to go out for lunch. They loaded everybody in the van, and they had the meeting at the 50-yard line of the University of Michigan football stadium. Holds 100,000 people or whatever it is, by themselves, box lunch. And it was, you know, which one of those 3 presentations you think they remember? So my challenge is constantly be thinking about how do we shatter the stereotype of the meeting.
Right. And that's, those are great examples of how just changing the location can totally shake things up, change everybody's attitude, mood, perspectives.
I'm sure you guys remember, you know, when we were kids, Sanjay not so much because he's so much younger, but one of my favorite things was, we're going to go outside for the class today, right? Yeah. When the teacher came in because it was a nice day. And that's why can't we think that way with our people?
Yeah, for sure. And thank you, Jeff. And Rob's mentions Mullally, the former CEO of Ford, his red, yellow, green approach, right? Very useful in meetings. And I know several leaders who use an approach like that, right?
Tell us about it.
Well, you're reporting on a project, and it's red, meaning we've got a huge challenge, a problem here, and we don't know how to fix it. But we have a plan to fix it.
Mike, you froze.
Oh.
We have a huge problem here, but.
Am I back?
Yes, you're back.
Red, we have a huge problem. We don't know how to fix it. Yellow, we have some challenges, but we have a plan to get us back on track. Green, we're on track, essentially.
Wait, are people holding these colors? I don't understand.
Yeah, you can hold up, sure. You can hold up flags. You can hold up, yeah.
That's
Yeah.
great.
You have to
I'm
dress.
not a-
If you wear a red suit, that's bad. You wear a green suit, great.
You good.
I obviously never heard of it, so I think that's a great
No,
idea.
it's a great. So I've got one, well, I've got a whole bunch here we'll get through, but one that I'm a big fan of, and you could do this maybe even just twice a year, maybe once a quarter, short, but a good neighbor meeting where you literally take the time to just talk about what do we just, especially if you're working together all in an office, what do we just need to remember, folks, to just kind of be better neighbors, be better teammates? Like, what are those little pet peeves that are getting under our skin? You know, share those surveys, talk about things that could just improve the office environments. You're not necessarily, you're talking about culture a bit, but more just those day-to-day irritants, you know, the simple little things to just, and to remind everybody, right? Let's just all be good neighbors with one another.
The other thing, go ahead, Jeff.
I was just gonna say, do you have pictures of Mr. Rogers and stuff?
Well, you should, yes.
Everybody wears that cardigan.
Everyone wears their cardigan.
The other thing too with all of these meetings is sometimes it's a matter of knowing what fits your group, because some of these, you know, you can do once a quarter and people are loving it and they can't get enough of it, and others doing it once every 10 years is too much. And sometimes just the one-off can make it legendary and people talking about it. And to that regard, having a mockery meeting where people come and mock the people and the traditions of the meeting. And so it you know, sometimes again, some people will get right into this and others, you know, might be offended. So you got to really know your people. But if it's done properly, it's one of those things that lives, and you don't have to do it every quarter, even once a year. You can talk about, oh yeah, about 7 years ago, we had this mockery meeting and they made fun of the CEO. But again, it just gives people that connection. And it also points out some of the things that maybe people weren't aware of that are overdone or not done enough, or, you know, that kind of thing.
I may have shared this story with you very quickly, but I did that once with my kids. You know, we always sit at the same seats at the table at dinner, always. And I said, wait, why do we do this? So tonight we're going to switch seats, and whoever seat you sit in, you have to play them throughout the meal.
Well,
my
that's a great
oldest made
idea.
a beeline to my chair and proceeded to burp through the entire meal. So wouldn't it be a great idea if the CEO was game to say, somebody's going to take my place and act like me? You know, I love that idea.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. Okay, so Sanjay, you reminded me of Oops meetings. I love this concept. There's a Swedish software company, Centiro Solutions, and they have a failure club. So they hold these failure meetings where there's lots of humor, but they make it
Keeps freezing.
where everybody talks.
You froze again. What are you on? Canmore?
You're
Dial-up?
frozen.
What's going on?
Messed up on.
He didn't pay his bill.
You're
There
fading.
you-
I'm cutting out, aren't I?
You're back.
Am I back?
You
Do
are.
I have to go back to the beginning? Hi,
No,
everyone.
they have-
Welcome. It's Wednesday.
They have failure meetings, and it's a lot of. They have humor. Go on.
They have
They have lots of humor, very
they have
specific.
internet failure meetings?
They have internet failure meetings. They have failure meeting where people share. And so the whole idea is they've created a safe space because there's lots of humor, because it's the purpose to learn from your mistakes, to learn from your failures. So everybody
Jeez.
for being willing to get up and share their mistakes.
We're not even going to tell you when you cut out now.
Oh, geez, seriously?
But
You're
I will
well
tell you that when you do, it's never flattering
No.
pictures. Exactly.
Why don't I just stay like
And so we can only say one thing.
Well, the funny
Oops.
thing is, yes, you just
Company.
froze like that.
a Finnish company, Vincent?
Sorry, Michael, you actually just froze with that face.
Seriously?
You did.
Sorry, everyone. I don't know what's going on in Canmore.
It must be your next door neighbors also using the internet. That's all. There it goes again.
Funny thing is, he's the one with all the content too. So, you know,
Exactly.
how
He's
about
like-
those
I
Pittsburgh
love that.
Steelers?
All right, we lost that whole thing. So
Oh, and he's frozen again.
yeah, Michael. Let's just watch him throughout the rest of the meeting.
Geez.
I'm getting giddy. I'm so tired.
Am I here now? Am I here with you?
Sorry.
You are here. Yes.
Sorry.
Not sure if that's good or bad.
Go ahead. But you had another one?
No, well, another company. I don't know if you heard, just another company from Finland who does Oops meetings. So Oops meetings to celebrate your mistakes, your failures.
I love that idea. I think it's great to, otherwise it becomes a very serious topic when you're talking about failures. So yeah. How do you do it with humor?
And by the way, when you're doing an oops kind of meeting, it's always good to set the table by having a senior person go first, because then it gives people permission. The most senior person in that room, guy, girl, CEO, C-suite, doesn't matter who it is, because then they kind of go, oops, I messed up, and here's what I learned from it. It sets the table that other people feel safer about it.
So excellent point. Sarah Blakely, the former CEO of Spanx, she would celebrate her fail. She would get everyone together. She would turn it into a dance, and she would just totally embrace it with a lot of humor and say, man, did I screw up? Here's what I did. And it sets the tone, right?
Yeah.
By the way, Carol said we should hold our hand up so you know when you're frozen.
That's a very good, yes, that's a very good tip.
And we are going to put together a bloopers reel. So.
Hey, how about jobstacle meetings? This is another one I like. Jobstacles being those job-related obstacles.
Sorry, go ahead.
Did I freeze?
Nope.
No, you didn't.
No.
You
said the word jobstacles. Remember the green room conversation?
Oh, yes.
Just mine went to the body.
Oh, jobstacle meetings.
Okay.
Work-related obstacles getting in the way of people doing their work. So having a specific meeting where people just talk about the things that are slowing them down, the inefficiencies, the bureaucracy, the red tape. What can we do to make things simpler for everyone? What are things that are maybe demotivating people? And what are those jobstacles that that are getting in the way of our success?
I think you have to be careful with this one, because it could be, I'm in my cubicle and Bob over there talks too loud. So it could be a bashing kind of, you have to set the ground rules for something like that.
Well, that should have come up in the Good Neighbors meeting, Jeff, where you talk about, hey, can we all just remember that we're in an open cubicle area, and if we're going to be good neighbors, let's be aware of our volume.
And on the flip side, we're talking about things that are annoying us and things that, failures. What about rewarding successes? And you can actually take a spin of a drinking game. So whether it be you get little donut holes, or you get Timbits, or you get something.
Wait, thumb balls.
There you go. You get those. And every time someone shares a success, you drink. You have a Timbit, you have a something. And or if you want to, this is the camp guy in me, but if you remember the game Chubby Bunny, and Chubby Bunny was this game where I'd have to, I apologize in advance, but where you have to stuff marshmallows in your mouth, and you'd say Chubby Bunny. So once you would be like two people competing against each other. So you try to get like 15, and then you have to Chubby Bunny, until eventually someone spits it all out. So you take that, and every time someone has a work success, you Chubby Bunny, and you kind of, you take a little silly game to have it. Because here's what it comes down to, is we are emotional beings, and we tend to remember, and messages stick with us when we get people in an emotional state. So the idea of doing these meetings is to mix up the emotion. If we change the location, you're saying about being on the 50-yard line at Michigan Stadium, we have a different emotional attachment to it, and those messages and the ideas and the concepts behind them are reinforced further. So sometimes even taking something that you normally do and just mixing it up with something as simple as, I don't know, everyone gets a red coffee cup. It changes the emotional attachment to it, and the messages stick better.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, really good point. And even just doing, some of my clients do stand-up sit-down meetings where every other agenda item they stand up for. They finish that agenda item, then they sit down, right? And it just breaks up the energy. It just kind of shakes things up a little bit.
Yeah. Rob, by the way, thinks that you look like Richard.
I know, right? Huh?
It's a definite improvement.
I need Richard's glasses.
Yes, exactly.
Let
me throw another one out, and that first of all, I besides the one I was thinking of, what role does food play in meetings? Right? Yeah, I think it is a prerequisite. Not for every meeting, I don't think, otherwise. But I have had clients who, sporadically bring in a food truck and buy. Everybody gets to go to the food truck before the meeting. Obviously, you're not going to do that on a weekly basis, but again, to shake things up. But the other one we're forgetting, and the most, sorry about all of yours, but the most important one, bring in an expert meeting. to
Bring in
speak
an
to your
expert.
people.
In the name of
like-
Jeff Tobe,
You like hire a speaker?
Exactly. So,
bringing in. Hey, well, I do like the idea on that. Okay, first of all, let's go back to the food thing, though, right?
Yeah.
Food is as been pointed out, only the best meetings have food. I have a friend named Larry who worked in the same organization I did as a senior manager. We were both managers together, and he created this policy for himself that he only was going to attend meetings where the 2 F's were present: fun and food. They had to have food. They had to be fun. Otherwise, he was not going to attend your meeting. And he was a manager, and he stuck to that pretty well. Food makes a big difference. In fact, that's what another one of my specific meetings is: chat and chew meetings. Now, Beryl Health Call Centers has these meetings. They hold monthly chat and chew meetings where employees chow down on food with senior managers. And it's just a wide open meeting. So there is no agenda. This is just a chance with all the managers there for employees to ask any question they want to ask of senior managers over food in a relaxed atmosphere.
yeah, which brings up a whole other meeting too. That, sorry, I'm talking off the top of my head as I usually do, but what about company-wide forums where this happens not typically in a meeting room, and it doesn't matter about the size of the organization, where the CEO is put on the spot, or a panel just put on the spot kind of randomly, where they're not prepared, and people can ask any question that they want or submit questions. Another kind of meeting where it's just an open forum.
In terms of the food thing, this kind of got me going. I'm backtracking a bit, which is, and it ties into a previous episode we were talking about in hiring practices, but sometimes taking someone out in a one-on-one to a restaurant is a hiring practice that some organizations do, because they want to see how the person presents themselves. And especially too often in a sales environment, they want to see, is a person a slob, but do they have the manners? Do they know which fork to use? And again, it can be fun, but it is very culture setting, because it's an opportunity to share and to teach and to set expectations.
How they treat the wait staff is why some do it too, right?
My very first job, that's exactly what they did. It was in downtown Toronto, and they took 2 of us out, 2 candidates. We were competing for the same job. They took us out, and I knew I had the job when at the end the waiter brought the dessert tray and said, to show what, and this guy reached for one and took it off and put it on his plate. Instead of, these were just samples that had been out for weeks.
Did you win that because you stepped forward, or because he stepped back?
Exactly.
I don't want to know.
Right. Yeah. Great point.
Yes. Oh, and your point about bringing in experts, that's what I wanted to circle back to too, is I like the idea too. I mean, this isn't a specific meeting necessarily, but I do like the idea of bringing in what I call a ringer into your meeting now and then. Somebody with a totally outside perspective. It could be somebody within your organization, but in a different department. It could be one of your key customers. It could be a 10-year-old kid. It could be just anybody who has a totally different take on whatever it is you're talking about, especially as it relates to maybe coming up with new ideas or your customer experience. Bringing in some customers, bringing in some ringers to your meetings, that can be a really powerful way to
well, I think you mentioned something right there, and that is, bring in a customer once in a while. However you define that, it could be internal customer, like you said, another department, or bring in a customer and have them, kind of sit through the meeting so they can offer their perspective as well. I think that's a great idea.
Yeah, and again, though, with all this stuff, it has to fit. You can't just cram it down people's throats. Oh, I went to UOW. They said we should have a theme meeting, so we're going to have one every week. There's a fine line between people getting excited and looking forward to this and people rolling their eyes. And if you've crossed the threshold of eye rolling, it's really hard to bring people back. So you're better off having them being not enough than having too many. What are your thoughts on that? Would you guys agree with that?
I think it all circles back to intent and purpose.
Right.
As long as you are achieving some good solid goals and they're productive and they're successful, then the frequency of them matters less. It's all about value for time, right? But in general, as a general statement, I think most organizations need to go on a meeting diet big time. Absolutely.
I think the idea in general of these special kind of meetings, I think they should remain special. Like, I think that's where we're going with this. I had a client who once a quarter, just you knew that on the third Tuesday, once a quarter, it was going to be one special meeting. They never announced what it was going to be. And what reminded me is this comment that Wharton Graduate School has a course on etiquette. One of the ones they did, I remember when I was working with them, was they brought in an expert on etiquette, and they set like a dining room table. Their conference table is a dining room table with all the settings, and exactly that. How do you how dining etiquette? And
awesome.
They loved it. Yeah,
that's awesome. And Jeff, circling back to your kind of town hall forum idea, I talk about that too in the book, the importance of that. I think it's important you find the right balance. I know a lot of companies do these just once a year, and I don't feel like that's enough, right? Because and what happens, I think sometimes, not with everybody, but in some organizations, they put too much pressure on that one day, and everything goes into that one day, and then it's like, check, we've done our culture for the year. See you next year, right? And of course, it doesn't work that way.
So one of the ways to combat that is to kind of have like a micro strategy. And if you have some sort of a ritual, and not trying to be religious, but religions do this all the time, where people are tapping or touching or assuming the position. So I'm not trying to, you pick your form of it. But if you have something like everyone claps, it's called I actually used to do this with certain groups, that we go, high five yourself. And that was your way of like rewarding yourself. But if you have little mechanical, physical things you can do, like actually, I remember working with a rowing team, and they had, whenever they were getting down, they did this thing where they would go turn it around, and they physically would do this. So if they were training and they wanted to just kind of articulate to one another, they would just do this, and it all of a sudden again had that attachment to something bigger. So even if you're doing a traditional meeting, but there's something that everyone does because you all tap you rub the lucky Buddha or whatever it is, it becomes part of that on a larger scale.
Yeah. I think the opposite to what you're talking about, Mike, are not just about frequency, but how it's presented to the organization. This town forum we're talking about. My brother was a CEO of a company, now retired. And they would announce the town forum, the town hall, I think they called it, and they would ask for submissions of questions. And then the questions were vetted. And I'm thinking, one, if I were an employee, I'd be thinking, did somebody really ask that, or is that a plant, right? And secondly, maybe, which ones didn't make it? So I think that speaks to the culture as well.
Oh, for sure. Then what? People get cynical. They lose trust. It doesn't feel like a transparent meeting, right? And I think if you do those town halls, be careful that it isn't just an information dump from senior leaders, right? Make sure you are giving a ton of opportunity to hear from employees, to hear employees' voices, and make it fun. So on that note, Alpine Tubular company based in Calgary, Alberta, near where I live, they hold monthly town halls, believe it or not. And a part of it is always very fun. They do team building activities, but they're very open. They're very transparent. They talk about the numbers. They talk about the business priorities, everything. People love these. One of the cool things they do, though, because they are every month, is responsibility for putting them on rotates around different departments, different teams, so that it's always a new team that has to do it. So it has a different feel to it, a different spin to it, and people don't get burnout planning the meeting.
Mike, approximately what size company are we talking about?
That's a good question.
I just wondered because
they're not massive. They're not.
Yeah, it seems easier with a smaller company.
For sure.
So, yeah.
The other thing too, I think is so fundamental is the transparency piece, which is if you're saying you're going to have a meeting that is about celebrating successes, like you just said, Mike, you don't dump them with all this information. And if you say it's going to be a 15-minute meeting, it better damn well be a 15-minute meeting, right? Because that also allows you to go the other end too. Because if there is an information dump, you can say, hey, we're giving you a heads up. This will be an information dump. Bring your recorders, because the stuff we're going to say, we don't want to waste people's time, and we're going to say it once, and we really need you to. So that idea of the history of keeping your word, whether it's on time or on content or on topic, is a way of building the rapport moving forward.
Yeah.
Do you guys, let me ask you a question. Do you think that we should be considering a difference between in-person meetings, which we're talking about mostly, or virtual meetings? And how does it differ? Can we do the same kinds of meetings virtually?
Same principles apply. I think that, again, what you can do, you can pass a mug around in person. It's harder to do online, but there are still, the characteristics remain the same. How they manifest will change.
Okay.
Yeah. And I think taking advantage of in-person meetings better, right?
Yeah.
You could, like Sanjay said, you could do any of these meetings virtually for sure. When you're in person, though, make sure you're leveraging that as much as possible. Take advantage of it to have that personal energy.
Hit on your neighbor.
Yeah. On that note, too, of sort of town halls and hearing from employees, I'm a big fan of doing a regular, it's kind of a meeting, I guess, but doing a regular pitch day for employees. Maybe you do it once a quarter, maybe twice a year. Maybe it's only once a year, but having a fun kind of meeting situation where teams or individual employees can pitch ideas, and you turn it into a Shark's Tank or Dragon's Den kind of spoof, where they pitch their ideas to improve the workplace culture or to improve the business. They've got a customer experience idea, whatever it is. This is their chance. They have to do their homework, just like on Shark Tank or Dragon's Den. They've got to make a really solid case for their idea. And you get people involved, people can vote, people can cheer them on, people can participate. But I think that's a great idea to give employees a voice in a fun way.
Woot, woot.
And on that note, it just like the conversation just died.
Well, I was looking for something because you reminded me, and I can't find it. So.
Hey, what about? But we don't have much time here. A whole bunch of meetings I didn't get to, but what about just the importance of this meeting, since this is what we're talking about? Meetings about your meetings, which I know sounds a little meta and sounds like, oh my God, I don't want to, but rarely do we take the time to step back and say, how are our meetings functioning? Are our meetings effective? What could we be doing differently? Are people leaving our meetings, feeling soul sucking? There is one, I've written about this with a bank where they have, imagine this, right? They have this question. They have the acronym they use is they have Mojo meetings. So they have two key people at every meeting. One is the meeting owner, who's responsible for how the meeting is run, who's there, the agenda, everything. And then one is the JO part of Mojo, the joyful observer. And that person's job is to assess the meeting. Notice the framing. It's not, the sarcastic, cynical jerk. It's the joyful observer. So when a positive, what Sanjay's out, who just kind of steps back and analyzes how the meeting was run, but they also think about this. They have feedback on their app. Would you recommend this meeting to a colleague?
Oh, really?
Just like we would with our customers.
On a scale of 1 to 10?
Yeah. Would you, a kind of Yelp review for your meetings? So imagine if you did that with your employees. Does that scare the bejesus out of some of you?
Yeah.
If you ask that question of your employees, would you recommend this meeting?
For sure.
Or
we are coming to an end.
We are.
We call it the cat herder and the chat herder.
That's right. We do that. They don't know that, I don't think. They, as in everybody out there. Yes, we have the cat herder and the chat herder. What's the difference now that you've let it out of the bag?
Yeah. What's the difference? The cat herder is the herder of the cats, and they kind of run the meeting. That's what we've done it. And the chat herder is supposed to troll the chat and kind of keep things playing more mechanically. It's not exactly what you said, but it's important, to have that feedback, that self-awareness of whatever we're doing as an organization and the widgets we're building, or how we're structuring things, or how we're communicating with one another. The more we can have that self-awareness and sit back and go, we're messing this up. How do we do it better? Or we're doing it really well. Let's continue doing that. It's really, really helpful. Anyways, look at the time.
I hate to be the timekeeper, but we are.
Yes, Jerry, I can juggle. Yes.
I can't believe how quickly this went. Thank you for everybody for their input. I want to mention that our next get together is, what day's today? I don't even know, so I don't know.
April 17th.
That's it, April 17th. I knew that. And we have an amazing guest I want to tell everybody about. His name is Jack Flaherty. he is an expert in decision making and how that affects culture.
Oh,
So I
very
think
cool.
it'll be a lot of fun. We have some great guests coming up in the next few months.
So hold on a second. It's fair to say he's not an expert decision maker, right? Because he agreed to do the show.
Well, I didn't say they were good decisions. They just he made a decision. That's all. So,
An excellent decision, Sanjay. Don't be
yes.
silly.
So everybody, make sure you're going to be here. Happy April. Anything else, guys?
Nope. Well, we'll see you.
Wait, when? Every other Monday.
Every
no.
other Wednesday.
Wow, you-
Oh, it's Wednesday? Okay.
Thank you all.
See you, folks.
Bye, guys.
See you in 2 weeks.